Thursday, everyone. Welcome to another Rock University training, another collaboration with Old Republic Home Protection. Super excited to have them on and collaborate with Troy on today's training. So as you know, rockuniversity.com, rocuniversity.com, lots of value in here. Trainings aside, a lot of cool stuff in the VIP All Access I'll show you in just a second. But if you go to rockuniversity.com, you're going to be able to click on that training schedule and see the remainder for October. So we've got plumbing facts every real estate agent needs to know today. Back with Troy, he gave us some HVAC facts. And we've got Tara on, Tara Carter with Old Republic Home Warranty. That's going to be tag teaming this with him. We also have, where was she? Kimberly is on as well. And I'm not sure if any other reps are on, but super excited to collaborate with you guys again today. The 19th, how to optimize your YouTube channel and video content. If you want to level up your business and start doing video content, whether you're in the video or it's faceless, however it may be, 2024, this is the time to start doing it now. So I'm going to show you that. And then the end of the month on the 26th, we have Morgan Hodges and Josh Henson from the Mojo team talking about video's future impact on real estate and multiple prospecting strategies. Again, things Q4 gearing up so that we have a strong Q1 and Q2 and getting in front of more people. In addition to all these trainings, if you click on VIP All Access up here, you will register for a login. It's free. You just have to create a login. You get instant access. Once you get logged in here, every month we upload new social media and newsletter assets in here, all free Canva templates. I'm never going to put a template out that you have to upgrade to the pro version of Canva. So October, November will be up by the end of the weekend, trying to get those up as soon as possible for you guys. All you can do is click the little drop down, click this link. It's going to open it up, use template. It's going to push it into your Canva account. And then it's fully editable from here. It's all yours. You go in, change backgrounds, add your information, your contact info, all that stuff. There's always 30 to 40. It's amazing because I'm starting to see these everywhere on my feed. Agents are friending me, and I just love seeing them actually being used and all that great stuff. So a quick shortcut on your computer, on a PC, Control F, on a Mac, Command F. You're going to click that. You have your little find and replace feature here. So if I type in my name exactly how it's shown, and then for H, I can click replace all, and now it's been updated on every single piece. You can do that for the phone number. You can do that for the email, website. Obviously, you want to make sure you're compliant. If you're in Nevada, you have to have your license number on there, your brokerage, all that good stuff. You want to make sure it's on there, but that's a quick way to swap out that information. In addition to that, like I said, you got the newsletter every single month. They match the month, so it'll be themed. Obviously, we're in the fall time, winter, it'll be more wintry, all that good stuff. You just click those links. In addition to a bunch of other templates that are available for you to use as well. rockuniversity.com. If you want to see all of our recorded trainings, video library, it's going to take you to our YouTube channel. You already know you should go subscribe. We're at 562. You guys are awesome. But all of our 135 videos, all of our trainings are recorded and they will be posted here by the next morning. So this will be out by tomorrow morning. So subscribe to that so you don't miss any of those. With that said, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to hand it over to Troy, who is going to talk to us about plumbing facts that we need to know.
Awesome. And let me go ahead. I have a couple, so I'm just going to go ahead and just share my screen. And that way, once I pull up and push play, does everybody see that? Thumbs up, thumbs down?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Let me see if I can get rid of the status bar a little bit because this thing stinks. I'm going to put down the bottom there and let me just erase that. So sometimes you'll have these little gray boxes. That's actually my screen and you're seeing that it's kind of coming through. So again, as I mentioned before, I'm a little bit blind since I'm on a PC. So I'm going to have Justin and Tara go ahead and monitor the chat. So just if you want unmute, you can ask a question or put it in the chat. And then either Tara can jump in and interrupt or Justin. And Tara Carter, she is a super experienced rep for Old Republic Home Protection. I've known her since she started with Old Republic because I was an Old Republic employee. I started in 1999. And Tara, what year did you start with Old Republic?
All I know is it's been 18 years. So I was with 3 years with Old Republic Title, but then you remember Anna Lee. Some of you on here may remember Anna Lee. She retired, and then I came over to the home warranty side, and so glad I did. I love it here.
Awesome. Yeah. So I've known Tara for a long time. Kim Farrar, same thing. She's on right now. She's also an excellent account executive for the Phoenix area. And I know Wendy Mueller was at another meeting, but she will be jumping on a little bit as well. So what I really like about the plumbing class is obviously we're going to talk a little bit about water heaters, polybutylene, which sometimes is that deal killer. I'm going to show you some new technology too that I'm using in my personal home I just built, but it's going to save you on insurance. But also if you ever have a client go, ooh, I love the house, but I don't like this. This is kind of like a way to overcome it, especially if you're working with a buyer and showing them. So we'll get into that in a little bit. And then the last thing I'm just going to touch on is PSI. That's basically the pressure of the water coming into the home. I really want to make sure that when you're working with your home inspector, they test that and you know exactly kind of where the threshold is, because it isn't typically regulated by the water companies and it can cause a lot of damage. So we're going to go ahead and get started. As I mentioned, we have Tara Carter. She's our hot seat guest because I have some questions that I put into this pertaining to home warranty that she's hopefully going to be able to answer. I know she'll be able to answer. And that's really our goal, is to also educate you on when to pull the trigger, like when to get the best warranty, maybe when you don't really need the best warranty that's offered by Old Republic or even another home warranty company out there. So just so everybody sees, this is a slide I use every single time. Pico came to visit me at the new house. We just wanted to show him this is where he'll be living. But he is very inquisitive. He's a little Maltese Yorkie or a Morkie, but it's that question mark. So there's a saying, the only bad question is what type of question?
The one you don't answer or don't ask?
There you go. Yeah, the one you don't ask. So typically I'll have the answer. If I don't have the answer, I have some great plumbers I can always reach out to. Tara has probably a team of plumbers, or she might know the answer. Kim might jump in. You might have Wendy or someone from Las Vegas. So the thing is ask those questions is what helps to basically drive and build and evolve these presentations. So I do 3 of these. I do one on plumbing, which we're doing today, one on HVAC, which last time we did that, there was well over 100 agents connected. And I do one on heating because it's completely different than air conditioning. So since we're not in heating season, we're kind of finishing air conditioning season, let's talk about plumbing, okay? So the first thing we're going to talk about is water heaters. And when you walk into a home, let's say you're representing a buyer, you see a water heater, but how do you know how old it is? So it's actually really simple unless you run into one brand, and we'll talk about that in a second. So typically a water heater is always going to have a manufacturer's label. So this is my older home. This was back in North Carolina. And you see the little label down here, kind of circling around with my cursor, and then the green arrow. That's the manufacturer's label. And when you look at that label, it actually tells you the build date. So you notice this one here is a gas water heater because we have the yellow shutoff valve right there and the gas line. Also, we have the pilot right here. But it shows you that this was manufactured in May, the 16th of May, 2013. So this year in May, it turned 10 years old. And so we'll talk a little bit about life expectancy, but when we start hitting certain dates, I guess you could say, it might be one of those things where you want to have a conversation with your client, especially your buyer, about protecting themselves. Because the fact is that this is basically metal and water, and eventually the metal fails because the water rusts it out. And then you have a leak issue, just kind of like what Tara went through with your cabin. So really simple. Typically, you're going to see that 05, 16, 23, and that's going to be on pretty much every brand of water heater out there. And you can just walk up, take a look, and you should have a good idea of the age. Now, sometimes you'll run into what's called a Bradford White. Bradford White is a fairly popular brand, but they use letters, and as you know, there's only 26 letters in the alphabet, so they only use 20 of them. So every 20 years they use the same letter over again, so it gets very confusing. And even if you ask a plumber, they're like, I can't figure it out. So if you ever run into a Bradford White and you want to know how old it is, this is an awesome free platform. Typically it's used by your home inspectors. When you log in, ask for a donation. I always skip that step, but it's going to give you basically how to read a serial number on every single water heater and air conditioners that are pretty much on the market. So it's called Building Intelligence Center. So when I click on that, you can see it opens up. And here's the actual website. And I don't know if you can see that, Justin, but if you can pop that into the chat box, because this is a great free resource for real estate agents. It's building-center.org. And if you notice here, there's two options. You have HVAC index, water heater index. When I click on water heater index, you'll see here that it's basically alphabetical from A to Z. So if I run into that Bradford White, since it starts with the B, I'm going to click on the B. And when I do, it gives you every single brand that's out there in America that you might possibly find in them. So when I click on Bradford White, it tells you basically, let me just pull this up here. There you go. You'll see that basically there's two style of serial numbers, and it's those stinking letters that basically make it really confusing, because that D is the year. So whatever that D is the year. And when you click on it, it gives you a breakdown of that serial number. So D, you just go down the scale, would be 1987. It could be 2007. It can also be here in the future, 2027. So it's a bit confusing, but they give you one other little point here. And that is, look at the ANSI. That's the American National Standards Institute, because they usually stamp it as well. And so if you're wondering, is that a 2005 or 1985 water heater? Well, because of that letter, just look down there and they'll usually date it. And that will give you also a good idea of how old that water heater is. So it's a great resource, as I mentioned. It also shows you how to read serial numbers for HVAC systems if you want to know how old they are. But it is important, because the thing is there's different types of water heaters, and every water heater has a different type of life cycle. So let's talk a little bit about some of the ones that you're going to run into. That's the most common. That's your gas water heater, right? So tank gas water heater, we'll usually know it's a tank water heater, because just look for that yellow flex line, because that's going to represent either natural gas or propane. And just so you know, all the colors that we see now should correspond to the major utilities. So I talk about this in my HVAC class, but just so you know, if you ever see them make the marks, the call before you dig guys, in your yard or on your street, yellow always signifies natural gas. So as we can see here, natural gas, propane. Blue is going to be fresh water. Green is potable water, which is going to be your sewage. White is electrical. And then orange is going to be typically like your coax or your high-speed internet cable, that sort of thing. So at least they're getting better at that. All these now signify natural gas. So that's a dead giveaway, but a tank water heater can also be an electric system as well. So this is another system really popular. We'll talk a little bit about those and the cost. This is a Rheem, but this is your on-demand or tankless water heater. I just installed one myself, and I went with a Navien. That's, I guess, the best one on the market now. They're pretty awesome, because I don't know if you're aware that here in most of Arizona, if you have a home over 1,800 square feet now, you're required to have a recirculating pump. And they have those literally built into the system. They also built into the system the fact that you can switch it over from natural gas to propane. So you don't actually have to go and buy extra equipment. It's all basically in the unit. So they're really popular, but as we mentioned, there's going to be some pros and cons to those. And one of the biggest objections I think people have is the cost, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So this is one that I've seen up here. I'm in the Prescott area, and it's becoming more and more popular. Is everybody familiar with these heat pump water heaters? So it's using a small little heat pump, and it's pulling heat out of the air, and it's heating up the actual refrigerant coil, and it's ejecting cold air conditioning off the top of it. It's great if you're in the, garage in the summertime, because you got a little extra air conditioning. You may want to do what these people did, vent it, because in the wintertime when your garage is already cold, the last thing you want is more air conditioning pouring into it. But these are very popular now. You're starting to see these in homes that have more of a electric focus with solar, because these do really well running off the solar power system. So quick question, Tara, I'm going to be on the hot seat. Does Old Republic cover these types of systems?
Yes, we do.
Okay, good. All right. And then another question is there a dollar limit on these types of systems?
No.
Okay, good to know. And we'll talk about some limitations with other companies here in a few minutes, but I personally
do want to say,
that.
I just want to add though, just so everybody is on the call, because there's different states of people here as well, right? So you have to check your state's policy and stuff like that. And just so everyone knows, we are coming out with a new plan. In some states, it'll be November, some states it'll be December, so keep a lookout for that. So you'll see some additions and things, so I just
Awesome.
wanted to add that.
Cool. Well, these are really awesome systems. I know that we have up here in Prescott a company called Mandalay Homes, and they're building these homes. They include solar. They actually run a water heater, and then they do this. I don't know if you've seen this before. It's a manifold that runs off of it, and then these little tubes basically run through the floors or runs through your actual furnace, and that's what's actually heating the home now is the hot water on those heat pump water heaters. Very efficient, really nice heat. Really expensive. So, but it's one of those things where you can pretty much have a very energy efficient home that heats and cools really nicely without that kind of effect that heat pumps have, which they dry the air out. So if you ever run across this and you see like a system with all these extra tubes, we call that an Apollo system. Again, pros and cons to those I talk about in the heating class. But just so you know, if you do run across these and you don't attend my heating class, I would recommend your clients have a plumber service it every year just before winter. So now is the time to service it. And the reason why is all this water that you're not using is sitting, and it sits there for 8-9 months during the heating season. And what happens to stagnant water after a certain period of time? Well, it gets nasty. So when the system kicks on, it takes all that water and flushes it back into the water heater. And that's what you're basically seeing come out of the taps. It's coming out of your shower heads. So try to avoid that by having them come and flush it. So just a little tip if you run across one of these Apollo systems or what they call a water source heat system off of a water heater, but pretty cool systems. So average lifespan of a water heater and the average replacement cost. So we're going to do a comparison because I have prices just as COVID started, and Tara just sent me the prices now, and it's shocking how expensive it's gotten. So the cheapest water heater is going to be an electric water heater. It lasts between 10 to 12 years usually, so that's going to be the lifespan. So Tara, how expensive is it now to replace an electric water heater?
I have my notes right here. Can you hear me? I have my notes right here. Okay. So, and it does depend on the size, but it can be anywhere from $1,800 to $2,800.
Okay, so that was $1,200 to $1,300 a few years back, just as COVID started. So just again shows you the inflation, the cost has its jumped. Okay, gas water heaters, that's going to be the next one. Tank gas water heater. Those last about 10 to 15 years because they don't have the electrical components. They do last a little longer. But what is the cost for a gas water heater?
My sources tell me they're $100 to $200 more than the electric ones. However, they are less efficient. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, you do. Yeah, because the thing is that electric is one part in, you get one part out. With the gas, when it actually sets the flame up, you have to actually exhaust some of that, so you lose some of that energy. And it's actually being sent outside of the home. So you do actually have a system that probably isn't as efficient. Just so you know, back before COVID, $1,400 to $1,800. So again, we're seeing like a massive jump in cost. Okay, so another one, I'm not going to talk about direct vents, but the tankless. So what is the average cost of a tankless? They usually last between, by the way, 20 plus years, just so you know.
Well, that's good because they are pricey. So what I was told is that sometimes a permit can be required for a tankless. And then also if it's a 2-bathroom home, it's $3,000 to $4,000. If it's a 3-bathroom home, it's $3,500 to $4,500. And that's if you're using your existing gas line.
Yeah. So I talked to a plumber about that today too. He was helping me with my tankless water heater. And he was saying that if they don't have a gas line and they have to do what's called a retrofit, they're pushing around $6,500 to $7,000. So again, you watch HGTV, everybody gets a on-demand tankless gas water heater. Your clients are looking at homes, are like, oh, let's just do a tankless gas water heater. It's like, well, you have an electric water heater. Just so you know, it's probably going to cost you around $7,000. It's like, oh yeah, that's never discussed on HGTV. But it's just good to know the average replacement cost, because the thing is that they aren't getting cheaper. When I started in home warranty, now that was back in the 90s, a replacement for a water heater was around $350. That was kind of pricey. Obviously, we didn't have tankless at the time. So we can just see that that price goes up and up and up. And that's why I wanted Old Republic to come on, because they can talk about how to mitigate some of those costs. And especially when it comes to the different levels of plants. We'll get into that in a second here, but let's just talk about some pros and cons, because as I mentioned, probably the biggest con to that tankless is going to be the cost. Now, if it's an electric tankless, that's pretty much garbage. Like an actual, if you talk to a plumber, would you install a tankless electric water heater in your home? You're going to get a common consensus, which is heck no, unless you want to have your lights dim every single time it kicks on, because it just requires so much energy to heat that water so quickly. It's just not an efficient system. So it's not practical to go to a electric water heater to a tankless electric. But if you want to do more efficiency, go with an electric water heater and switch it out to one of those heat pump electric water heaters. It's a little bit more, but you're going to get that efficiency and you're going to get that on-demand water. So that would be my recommendation. We talked about cost. The biggest probably pro with an on-demand system is it's going to always provide water. You can fill up a, 2 bathtubs and someone else can take a shower and nobody runs out of hot water. It's constant. Does it mean that on-demand is when you turn on the faucet, it's hot? No. They call it actually a sandwich, where you'll have hot water and then cold water and then hot water again. But with the new laws coming in when it comes to those recirculating pumps, what typically you'll do is you'll install like a little unit, a sending unit at the farthest faucet, and then it will actually rotate the hot water to that farthest faucet. So that way, when you're asking for hot water, you're going to get a few minutes or a few seconds of cold and then the hot shows up. So they're improving that. It's much better than it was before. So those would be probably the pros. This is on demand, endless hot water. The cons would be obviously that it's very costly. So you have to basically have those pros and cons when you're talking to this too. But the best thing about it is they do have a good lifespan. One last thing, if you do have a tankless water heater, every year it is recommended that it gets descaled because the water is running through what's called a heat exchanger. And so since we have hard water, especially here in the desert, it will build up and it makes the system less effective. So you can add like a descaler, and there's certain things you can do, but typically once a year, you're going to have to pay a plumber to come in and service that. So if you have a tankless and you haven't serviced it, I do recommend you probably call a good contractor that can go out there and do that for you. Are any questions before we move on to the warranty, what they pay for replacements and all that sort of thing? Did you see anything in chat? Sorry. Just jump
Real
in.
quick, Christine just said one of the plumbers indicated that the gas tankless had to be within 20 feet of the meter.
So
They depend
I
on
just-
markets, obviously.
yeah, I think that's going to be probably now. One thing I did
So-
learn is that a tankless water heater does require an expansion tank, which is weird because it's not under pressure, but they still require an expansion tank. So that's one thing that is kind of odd, but I think every jurisdiction and area might be a little different. Like for example, where my gas comes into the home, I'm 30 some odd feet away. So it's probably going to be based on, the area itself when you're pulling those permits, and then I'll have to basically stay with the code of that. So I can actually ask my plumber here locally, but it's probably going to be like case by case on. Any other questions there?
I think that's
All right.
it. Just others are statements.
Okay, so Tara, you had mentioned that Old Republic doesn't have a dollar cap on those water heaters that have the heat pumps. Do you have a dollar cap on like the tankless ones, or dollar caps on any other ones?
No, where we have a dollar cap is on the water source ones.
Okay.
I just had this happen. That's why I know that. And it's it's $1,500. So.
Okay.
on
Yeah.
the
So
water
if
source.
that water source, remember the picture where you saw all those tubes and the valves and
Mhm.
all that? That's a water source, what we call a hollow system. And I think they separate it out, right? So it'd be water heaters one, and then your HVAC is completely different. So, but now there's other companies out there that have lower dollar limits, right?
Oh, yes. All home warranty companies are not the same. I like to run through like our 3 plans. We have the standard, we have the ultimate, and the platinum plan. Okay. So just to give you an idea of why you would want a platinum plan.
How about we do this, Tara? Can I do this? How about I show you? This is what you get for a standard plan. So I actually put pictures in.
Oh,
there for
you did. Oh, perfect.
Yes,
Okay.
okay.
Mhm.
So if you get the standard plan, that's the cheapest. How much is the standard in Phoenix? I know that every area is different.
How much? Well, we pay for the water heater itself and installing it. It's just the homeowner has to pay for the trade call fee as always, and they have to pay to haul away the old one and any modifications. So
Perfect.
there
So when you-
are,
Yeah. So when you see this unit right here, it's going to be parts and labor. That's the standard, the cheapest plan. And this is going to be with all warranty companies. You're going to see these good, better, best scenarios, and water heaters are the best explanation of that. So again, just like Tara had mentioned, here's your tank, right? You get that covered, the labor to install the tank, you'll get the TMP valve. But that's pretty much it. So when you go now to the next plan up, what's the name of that plan?
that's the ultimate plan.
Okay, so I put on the side there looking over, these are some of the extras you get, right?
Exactly. So in this scenario, what they would pay for is if there's any modifications and the trade call fee.
Okay, perfect. So if I had the ultimate plan, my water heater goes out, since it's a better plan, not only would I get the parts of the actual water heater, the TMP and the labor, but now the company, Old Republic, would pay for the necessary permits. The expansion tank, if you see it up here,
Mhm.
also the
Yes.
haul away to get rid of it so it doesn't become a lawn ornament, because who wants a water heater in the front of their yard? And then lastly, codes, because there's codes, but there's dollar caps. I
Code
think
upgrades.
yeah, code upgrades are $250. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, permits I think are $250 as well, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so looking at this now scenario, I just want to show a couple other things, just so you know, as real estate agents, when you're walking through a home. If you see the expansion tank, that's the first thing that fails. Those usually fail between years 6 and 7. And the reason why is they're usually upside down, and there's a steel weld inside, and the water's pushing against it with pressure. So what ends up happening is the steel will start to compromise, and you'll start getting, like on this water heater, you can't really see it, but a slight rust stain. So that's telling you that it's about 7 years old. That's the first thing that fails. The next thing that fails is going to be your TMP. And if you notice here, if you can see that on the pan, there's like that kind of a coppery mineral look. And that's because the TMP is no longer, staying basically put, and it's starting to slowly release a little bit of moisture. So that's the next thing. So if you see that in a situation where you're in a home with a buyer, I would at least probably do the ultimate plan, because you know that this is going to be a system that's going to be ready to probably fail in the coming years. Now, there's one more too, but let's just talk about codes. So code upgrades are really important. For example, if this water heater didn't have an expansion tank and it's required, it would be up to $250 to add that. If that unit, which this one here is in a closet, is on the floor, but it's a gas, how many inches now by code does it need to be off the ground? Does anybody know? So it's 18 inches. But the question is, why do you need to put a gas water heater 18 inches off the ground? Why is that code? I mean, there has to be a reason for it, right? So what do we store typically in our garages? Well, our lawnmower, jerry can of gas, maybe our weed eater, and those fumes stay lower than the typical air in the home. And what does a gas water heater have at the bottom? Well, an open flame. That's a pilot, right? So the reason why these codes are in place and why they have to be upgraded, they get grandfathered in. If it's on the ground and you're with the buyer, they can buy that home, not an issue. But when they replace it, now it has to go 18 inches up. See, the thing is, Old Republic would pay to raise that up to 18 inches because it's required by code if they had that ultimate plan, $50. So
That's correct.
it's actually a really good one. The expansion tank is really important too, because guess what? These systems are under pressure. So show you a little picture. That's what happens when a water heater explodes. If you just ever want to Google it, just, pictures of water heaters that have exploded. I call that a past client because they're probably not presently with us, right? Not a good thing to be able to have for your clients to go through. So again, those codes, the expansion tank, 18 inches off the ground. I mean, a tank water heater is typically a pressurized, system. We don't want this to happen. So those codes, as frustrating as they are in place for our clients' protection. So again, that's really nice that you have a warranty plan that will actually allow you to make those necessary upgrades. So I don't know if you've ever seen a picture like that before, but when I saw that, that was kind of shocking. Another thing I just want to mention, codes here in Arizona, I don't know about Nevada, we don't have earthquake straps. So if you're ever working with a client that's from California and you're showing them homes, they might mention that. So just let them know that based on this area, since we're not considered an active earthquake zone, you're not going to see those metal straps around the actual tank itself. So just keep that in mind if they ever mention that. So let's go to the last plan. That's the platinum plan, right, Terry?
That's correct. And it is the best plan out there in the industry. And so we pay up to $1,000 in modifications even for this. So the scenario where my water heater just burst and happened to have an Old Republic home warranty, it's going to cost $1,375 to replace it. And I had to pay the trade call fee, and I had to pay the emergency because it happened on a Monday night. I mean, on a Friday night. So wow, paid for my home warranty.
Yeah, for several years. And just
For
notice the modifications. Sometimes we don't think about this, but if that water heater has to go up 18 inches and these lines are, set hard, right? These are hard copper pipes. That means the lines have to be cut and moved. Water heaters, to become more energy efficient over the years, there's really not much you can do. So with the federal government, whenever they make them more efficient, they just force the actual manufacturer to add more insulation. So they get rounder and they get taller. Well, this is in a closet. There's only so much that a round peg can fit into a square hole, right? So it might have to be relocated. You might have to make modifications on the gas line because as that unit gets larger, you might not have access to that shutoff valve, which is tucked around the corner. And then there's the venting itself, that double wall venting. That's really expensive. And sometimes people don't realize that, and that's included as well. So modifications actually add up really quickly. And it's kind of like the way that a contractor can kind of ice their cupcake. It's kind of like a way for them to kind of fluff it and make a little bit extra money. But when you get that better plan, you're actually protecting yourself, you're protecting your client, and you're making sure that they're not getting taken advantage of when a contractor's out there, because they have to agree to set prices with the public on all of these things. So that hopefully helps understand a little bit different, the difference between a standard parts and labor versus an ultimate that includes now a few extras. And then lastly, the platinum, which includes parts, labor, your codes, your permits, and then also your modifications, haul away, and all that good stuff. So that's pretty much what we had on water heaters. I'm going to look at the chat. Is there any questions that we have in regards to that before we get into polybutylene? No? Okay. So I don't know, and I can't see everybody's screens here, if you've ever lost a deal over poly, because unfortunately what happens is up to 1996, they built homes and a lot of, manufactured homes, and they had polybutylene, or what we call Quest plumbing, in there. And there was a class action lawsuit against it. And it's kind of like this huge black mark against the home. I noticed, for example, when we were coming up from North Carolina to Arizona, obviously you're on realtor.com, Zillow, and you always see these comments, from the agents that says all poly has been replaced. So obviously it's such a negative thing that if a homeowner has gone through the trouble replacing it, they're putting it into the comments of the listing of the home to let them know that, look, we don't have poly, because the homes between basically the mid 80s, especially up to the mid 90s, they were using this polybutyl. So first of all, how do you identify it? Well, you can say that it's kind of that bluish gray color. That's one way, but it comes in different colors. But it's really the ASTM number. So you notice that there, ASTM, this D3309, that's the fingerprint for polybutylene. So if I actually just went to Google and I just saw an ASTM number, because everything has it, copper has it, PVC has it, your black pipe has it. Everybody has to put on there, on the side of it, a stamp, and each number is going to be different. So if you just typed in ASTM and you see that D3309, maybe it's connecting to a water heater, maybe it's below in a sink, and I click on that, it brings up the ASTM website, and it tells you here this is polybutylene. So that's the first way you can identify it typically, is through that ASTM number. So the question is does all poly leak, and why does it leak, and what are the common locations? So the thing is not all poly leaks. Sometimes it leaks because it's the reaction to the water and the chemical composition of the water. But what is polybutylene? Well, poly is the plastic, butylene is the gas. that they injected into the plastic, because with pipes, as they heat up, they expand, and they cool down, they contract. So you have to have something that will allow that plastic to kind of open and close. Well, they didn't realize when they created polybutylene is butylene actually evaporates out of the pipe. So what ends up happening, especially it's on the hot side, not so much the cold side, is it expands and contracts, but eventually without the poly or the butylene in the poly, it expands open, and as it shrinks back, it cracks open, and then you have a leak. So the question is, where are you going to have the most common leaks? Where are they found? So it's going to be typically in the corners where they have the fittings. And I have a couple of examples here. So if you're suspicious of poly, I would definitely have the home inspector take some pictures and just have a quick peek at them if you can. I don't know, every area is different. But just, I wanted to show you a little stat here. Here's where you're going to find it, 1978 to 1996, but look at how many homes actually had it. So you are going to probably still run into it, and a lot of manufacturers' homes, again, in those years were using it. But let me show you a couple examples, and these are red flags. Not, don't do the deal, but let's take a look at the first one here. So you have the gray stick, that's going to be your polybutylene. You have what's called shark bite. It's kind of cool. You just basically take a fitting, you push it on the pipe, you pull it back, it seals it immediately. And then this is the new version of poly, which everybody uses, which is called PEX. They basically sucked that piece of PEX, shoved it in, pulled it back, and sealed the leak. So the question is why is this original? What's happening over here to make this new? So the issue with poly is that when one area fails, a lot of times what a contractor will say is they're in the truck writing up the paperwork, and the homeowner's knocking on the window saying, we got another leak. So what ends up happening is water, obviously since it's pressurized, finds the weakest point. Once it finds the weakest point, it leaks. You plug that leak, it searches for the next weakest point, you find another leak. So it starts to become like a situation where you're chasing leaks throughout the home. And then now all of a sudden you're going to have to replace large sections of poly. So there's one example of a red flag. Here's another. This is probably the worst type of poly you have, which is when you have these copper fittings and then they strapped it with a copper strap. And look at that beautiful patina, right? We love patina, but we don't want patina on our plumbing fixtures, right? That's not a good sign. So obviously we're getting water seepage, moisture, and that's reacting with the air and it's causing that kind of greenish color. But also we look a little bit farther down the line with that poly, look at the fact that this is brand new shiny copper, right? And we can also see that the Teflon is nice and clean and new. So if a contractor sees that, like our inspector, that's a red flag, because why is this new? Why is this original? How much longer will it take before this will actually start leaking? And then last one, the efflorescence, which is that kind of mineral deposit through the actual seepage of water. We have old copper, we have a union, another piece of polybutylene, and another union, and you can see that there's problems on both of those. So again, not saying they're deal killers, but they are causes for concern. So the last thing we want is obviously to have active leaks in the home. But ballpark cost, Tara, because I asked you this one and she came back and I thought this was quite interesting. So just in case you actually have a client, and you're like, I do like the home, I like the location, the price is right, even though it has poly. So what is the average price to replace polybutylene?
$4 to $13 per square foot.
Yeah, so per foot, that's what you're going to charge. I talked to one of my plumbers, and so this is what they told me, which is kind of in the same ballpark. He says it's about $200 to $300 per fixture. So what is a fixture in the world of plumbing? So if you have just a single, let's say, sink, and let's say, for example, a shower and a toilet. So the sink has a hot fixture and a cold fixture, 2 lines. So that would be $200 to $300 each. Toilet, $200 to $300 because it's 1 line. Shower, $200 to $300. So you start adding up, that's like $600, $600, and $300, let's say on the high side, $1,500 for 1 bathroom. That does not include the holes in the walls, the paint, and all that. So you have to look at the body of the work and see, is it really worth it or not? And again, just because you have to replace a section of poly doesn't mean you have to replumb the whole house. So it can be done over a period of time. I had a perfect example of that. I have a really good friend who bought a really nice house in a really nice area for a really good cost because of poly. And they just basically did it themselves. They just did one line at a time, and when it's in his spare time. So, I mean, it can be done. It's something that you can do. So, question then is, how much does Old Republic or a home warranty pay towards polybutylene?
And
Or do
this
they
is one
cover
of,
it?
yes, we do cover it, and that makes us unique to most home warranty companies, because a lot of home warranty companies do not cover polybutylene, but we do on all of our plans cover up to 1,000, and then on our platinum plan, because you know it's special, it's up to $2,000.
Perfect. So overall, if you're gonna probably plumb a house with poly Depex, you're gonna look at about $78,000. So just so clients know, if they're getting a warranty, the warranty company's not gonna replumb the home. They're gonna replace the section of pipe that's bad. And it might be the whole run, or it might be just a section. So just keep that in mind, because again, it's the expectation that's sometimes a little too high for a client, and then they come back and they get upset you do because of it. So it's nice at least to know though that you can get a warranty if you run across poly. That might be one of your, arsenal things that you pull out to negotiate if you know the home does have poly. Because the thing is, we do want to protect it. All right, so let's
We
go
have a
ahead.
question. We have a
Yes, I was gonna say,
question.
let's do that because I'm gonna
Yeah.
talk about laundry. Okay, cool.
Emily asked, is that only if it wasn't noticed in the home inspection? And I think that's a question for the home warranty. So the polybutylene has to fail, and then we will go in and pay up to $1,000 or $2,000 to repair the failure.
And it's the same thing with warranty companies, since I did it for 20+ years. If there's a water heater that has code upgrades, the homeowner can't move into the home and just call up Old Republic and say, hey, come and bring my water heater up to code. It's when they're replacing it that they're required to bring it to code, because everything is typically considered what they call grandfathered in. So what's there basically is fair game. So that's usually how it works. So any other questions before we switch gears? Because I'm really happy with this product, and I was super thrilled to find out that I got a discount because I actually installed it. So it's this. What options are there when there's laundry or a water heater on the second floor? When you have a catastrophic leak and it's on the second floor, the damage is immense. Or what if you have hardwood floors in your kitchen, like we do? We have the white oak floors. What do you do? Because, if you have a leak in the dishwasher or the ice maker or under the sink, it can damage the floors. So there's a product, there's several out there, but this is to me the best one. It's called FloodStop. And so I just installed these. I put one on my ice maker, I put one on my dishwasher, I put them on my kitchen sink. So if it detects any water, see this little plate down here? I try it out, it's amazing. You can literally take your finger, just put it under the faucet, just get it like slightly wet, tap that plate. What it's gonna do is it's gonna send a signal to this unit. And the unit immediately sends a signal to these little attachments that you add onto your little angle stops, and they're automated ball valves. So basically, the actual gear turns the ball valve and it shuts the water off, and then this thing starts flashing red and making a noise, and there's no more water to that appliance or apparatus. So that way, if someone ever has a situation where they're like, we love the upfloor laundry, but we're scared of what we've heard about flooding, well, let me show you an example. It's called FloodStop. The issue with the washing machines on the second floor is not so much the machine itself that's going to leak, it's these hoses. So if you notice down here, the hoses, the issues are designed to last 3 to 5 years. And so most people, who changes out their hoses every 3 to 5 years? Nobody even thinks about it. So you go on vacation, right? And this thing has a big, huge bulge in it. It pops open, you come back from vacation, and literally your sofa's floating on the downstairs floor. So that's one of the ways that you can avoid that. It does it also for water heaters. I personally had a really horrible experience with an ice maker. We had built a custom home in Texas, and just before we moved in, the ice maker line broke, and we got a phone call from one of our neighbors saying you have a waterfall flowing up the back of your house. So we rushed out there. Fortunately, we did the stained concrete floors. It didn't cause any damage, but after that, I'm like, there has to be a better solution. So I would highly recommend that. And then guess what? You just need to let your insurance companies know. When my insurance guy saw what we had, he was able to offer us a pretty sizable discount on our home policy. So just keep that in mind. So any questions on the stop leaks? I have a site here that I can show you. That's their, here, I'll pull this down. That's their website. It's called getfloodstop.com. You can also buy them on Amazon. And you can see they're not super cheap, but they're not crazy expensive. Let's see here. Water heaters around $200 or so. And you have them for water heaters, ice makers, your sinks, washing machines, dishwashers. They have one also for a whole house, but it's a great option. Lastly, before we conclude, and I'm gonna stop sharing the screen so I can see everybody, PSI. So PSI is the pounds per square inch, and it's not typically regulated in communities or the water companies. So just so you know, the maximum threshold that you want to have coming into a home is going to be 80. But ideally, it's going to be between 70 and 75. So the reason why I bring this up is if you're going to do a home inspection, ask the inspector, okay, can you just text the PSI? It literally takes them 2 seconds to do it, just so you know. Now, if you have, for example, pressure regulator, you can regulate the pressure. If it fails, it can be basically no pressure or it can be crazy pressure. So that's another thing too. If you're already in your home and you're noticing that pressure is really, really high, and let's say, for example, you have an Old Republic home warranty, you can call Old Republic, correct, Tara? And they'll cover a failed pressure regulator.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So it's a kind of a little thing that's on the side here. It kind of looks like a little pyramid and has like a little screw on there. They're not super expensive, but they have a tendency to want to leak sometimes. And when they fail, as I mentioned, have either no water pressure or leak pressure. So just keep that in mind. If you have more than 80, you're going to have lots of leaks. You're going to destroy your faucets and fixtures. So it's really important just to have that inspector take a look at that. So that's pretty much what I had. Here's the price of that full house flood stop. Hopefully everybody feels that this was a class where you walked away with something. So I'm going to stop the share. And then is there any questions you have for myself or for Tara or even Kim, Farrar? Feel free to ask. No? Awesome. Was this helpful? I can see a few faces. Was this helpful information? Great.
A lot of
Thanks,
great
Wendy.
information. Very
Good.
helpful.
Awesome. Wendy, do you have any comments that you want to state? I know you're driving in your car right now, but.
No, great class. It was
Okay.
awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. And you have basically Tara and Wendy and Kim, and I don't know if anybody else from Old Republic is on, but they're incredible resources. Not only do they basically put out fires all day long to make your clients happy and make it so you can keep on focusing on selling real estate, but they have a wealth of information because they're basically into this knee deep every day. So if you need sometimes a good contractor, they're a great resource. If you have a question, they're a great resource. Terry, you had something you wanted to say?
Just in the chat, do you
Yes.
need to flush the water heater, a regular gas water heater? Do you need to flush it?
Susie, that's an awesome question. You know, and I've totally jumped over that. So the answer is yes. Once a year, you do want to, let's say twice a year, but once a year at least, please flush your water heaters. The reason why is 2 things. When you don't flush a water heater, since we do have hard water, it forms a sediment on the bottom. So because of that sediment, the actual element has to heat up even longer. And because of that, 1, you lose your efficiency, but 2, it's really hard on the metal and it can cause the unit to fail prematurely. So if when you drain it, you're getting rid of that. My recommendation, the best video I've found so far, Home Depot. Home Depot has some great step-by-steps. And with a gas water heater, by the way, it's frustrating because you have that little pilot lights by Honeywell. And just so you know, to get the pilot light going after you've turned it off, because there's a process, you have to sit there and push that button every second 99 times. Now, if you do it 98 times, it won't light, but you have to do it literally 99 times. Like your fingertip wants to bleed by the time you're done with it. And then finally the pilot will start. I'm just speaking from total experience. I've done it before and I panic. So I'm like, oh my God, I destroyed my water heater. And that's just that I wasn't patient. So yes, do that. You want to get that sediment out. Also, is everybody familiar with the new technology for water softeners? So if you get a chance, let me see if I can pull it up. I'm going to give you a brand. I just put this into my house. It's called Calmat, C-A-L-M-A-T. So what it is as you know, water softeners require salt, and then you flush that salt somewhere. It's either into the not septic, but into like a drain or what have you. This is something from Germany. What they do is they put 2 little electrical wires and they ionize the inside of your water. So because it ionizes it, the actual hard water can't stick together. And you can add it on after the fact, and if you have that white buildup of hard water, it starts to dissipate because it's activated. And the new water, since it's ionized, attacks the hard water scales and it actually comes off. So we installed one because of the fact we're on a septic and I didn't want to dump salt water constantly as we're doing the flushing into our property. So if you ever get a chance, CALMAT is new technology that's from Europe. They've used it for years and they're like $300 for the whole system, and anybody can install it. Pretty cool stuff. So that was something I learned in the process of building a house just recently. So any other questions at all? So Christy, you said expand on the water heater. You'll have to expand on that question.
Says expand on water softener.
A water softener, yes. All right, so
And I think you did.
Okay, good. That I'm pretty keen on it. I mean, obviously I'm beta testing it right now, but I'm sure hoping that I'm to put a full water softener system in there. So okay, let me see if I can get a link to the water. Yeah, I can do that. Let me see here. I'll pull it up right now. I'll do the actual website. So let me just type it in here. There we go. I have two screens going. So calmatusa.com. And I'm going to put in also the other one, Floodstop. There's other brands out there, but to be honest, talking to my plumbers, they just said this is by far the best one, Floodstop. That one. Here we go. And this was getfloodstop.com. So two great resources, if you don't mind. And so just so you know, Justin, you recorded this correctly?
That's correct. Yeah, it'll be up
Okay.
probably later this evening, tomorrow morning at the latest.
Awesome. So Emily asked, do we have a summary of things that you covered that could be shared? So go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel and you'll have that. If you ever want to go back, we also have my HVAC class on there as well. So you can always watch that in your spare time if you want to kill an hour or so. Awesome. Well, Justin, do you want to wrap anything up?
Yeah, just appreciate everyone. We appreciate the partnership with Old Republic Home Protection again. We love doing these with you guys, and thank you, Troy. I mean, just a wealth of information that I think is really, really good for our agent community. So we appreciate you.
Awesome. Well, if you didn't learn anything, we promise to give you your money back. Since it's a free class, I think it's a win-win for everybody.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, special thanks to Tara, because Tara is never fun to be sitting on the hot seat, never knowing exactly what questions are coming your way. So you did a very good job. So you're hired for the next time with Wendy, okay? Awesome.
Thank
And
you,
then,
everyone.
yes, and then Justin, what we'll do is, if it's okay with everybody here, we'll do a heating class here as it starts to cool down and it becomes more applicable, okay?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Have an amazing weekend, guys. Let's go out, be productive. This is Q4. Let's make it happen. See you guys in escrow.
Thanks, guys.